I'm going to change the focus a little bit and ask a question of you, Bishop Linda. There's concerns that have come up in the discussions around implications for clergy whose views are different from those of you as our bishop or the vote at General Synod. What if you authorize same-sex marriage in our diocese and a clergy person does not wish to officiate at a same-sex wedding? Or what if you don't authorize same-sex marriages and a clergy person wants to officiate at one?
Well, the answer to the first question is quite simple. Any cleric currently and in an ongoing way has the right to say, for reasons of conscience, I am not able to officiate this wedding. And that applies to any marriage where a cleric, for whatever reason, feels that this is not a marriage they can in good conscience officiate, they can decline. However, if I don't authorize same-sex marriages, it doesn't work the other way. Because the clergy are under a vow of obedience to the diocesan bishop. And whether they like it or not, if the bishop has discerned that same-sex marriages will not be permitted in the diocese, a cleric is not permitted to break that vow without being aware that there would need to be consequences to that. I don't know what those consequences would be, but this is part of what it means to live together in those relationships of obedience and community where we are discerning together as a community, even if we individually disagree with what the community has said at that time. So there is a conscience clause currently that continues. It is not changed. However, it doesn't work the other way.
And maybe just a couple of points sort of related to that. I wonder if either of you would like to comment on the sort of the pastoral implications of a decision one way or the other. What's a pastorally appropriate response? What would it mean to be in a pastoral relationship with a couple, for example, whose marriage you would not solemnize?
Well, I do think that we are talking about people who are our parishioners, and therefore we have to take seriously the pastoral responsibility to walk with that couple. And if it has become possible for them to be married in the church and it's been concurred with by the bishop of the diocese, I think the pastoral responsibility is to sit with that couple and to be honest with them about where you are and not being able to officiate at their wedding. But I would ask that you would consider deeply the responsibility to then refer them to somebody who could. But you are still their pastor. You are still the person who will have to walk with them in the time following. It would be the same if a couple wants to have you officiate and you're not able to, would be to see what is possible. We do currently have the possibility of blessing a civil union, a civil marriage. And so to walk with the couple, to discuss with them whether that is a possibility for them.
Thank you, Linda. And I think this is a question, Stephen, that's going to really have to be discussed at considerable length, I think, in the meeting of the House of Bishops post-General Synod. Because I think that we have a variety of practices across the church. And how are we going to, I mean, this is all about the pastoral response. And so we've got the kind of provisions that Bishop Linda has spoken of. We've also got a variety of places across the church where X number of parishes may be authorized. That may be extended or it may not be. It may be reviewed. And there are lots of places where, as Bishop Linda said, there's the same provision in place as there is in the Diocese of Huron. And then in other cases, of course, same-sex marriages have, quite frankly, already been authorized by the bishop. So I think that, and then I think we have what's necessary is some attention to relationships between bishops. around this, because diocesan boundaries are porous, as you know, when it comes to people's sacramental needs and the lengths to which they'll go to have those needs met. And I think we just need to be mindful of that as we continue to work together as bishops across the church too.
And Archbishop, while you have the microphone, would you comment on the ongoing place of clergy who have traditional views of marriage in the Canadian Church?
So my quick response is yes. We are Anglican. And we strive to be a church that's like that big tent. And there is actually room for a variety of views. And we need to make sure that we're continue to nurture in the life of our church an attitude and an atmosphere where people who hold to a traditional view of marriage as being between a man and a woman for life, that view is somehow not inadequate, or that it is somehow diminished because others have another view of marriage. And I used to say a broader view, but I don't think that's appropriate anymore. It's another view of marriage. So I think that we need to be attentive to the plea of those who hold a traditional view of marriage, that they feel secure, and that's the word they are using, that they feel secure in their continuing place within the life of the Anglican Church of Canada. And I think we ought to, and I think we can find ways for that, in fact, to be honored. There's the conscience clause, as Bishop Linda said, that's already in the canon. I know there are concerns around oaths and declarations that people make at the time of ordination, but if you look at, and I've looked at them all, the oaths and declarations across the dioceses and the provinces, and most of them actually speak to canons as may be amended from time to time, or canons as currently in effect. So I think we have that obligation to ensure that people who hold a traditional view that's honored. Now, in the same breath, we need to find a way for folks who hold a traditional view of marriage to be able to say, and there's space within this church for those who hold another view. So the courtesy, friends, has to go both ways if we're going to continue to try and be the church that by the grace of God has this capacity to live with difference over, in our history, many doctrinal issues and pastoral issues.